Jay Kidd comes into the fold. And we never really had a chance to dive into the dynamics of all of the relationships. And this is where I really want to hear from you, your thoughts on it too, because Jay Kidd enhanced everything we did. I don't think people really understand what he brought to the table. And I think we knew at the time that Jay was going to be the guy that kind of was the face of the franchise because of that, how dynamic he is. But walk me through, from your perspective, what went right, what went wrong, what could have changed with us? Because we didn't have a chance to really grow into what I thought we really could have been.
Well, I kind of looked at it as, we had the opportunity to really be, three J's essentially over a long period of time. And we had flashes of greatness. I think the thing that we kind of lacked was a veteran leadership in the locker room that has been through the paces of an NBA season. Even though we had Fat Lever, other people like that, I think we still need a stronger voice in the locker room. And then also, we have to take accountability for it as well.
Correct.
I came into the league, I was trying to plant my flag and, show people that I was worthy and that I'm capable. And I thought, you did try to do the same as well. All young players try to do the same. Jay Kidd in his own way probably tried to do the same thing. I don't think we were as mature to handle certain situations without that veteran leadership and without a strong coach and a strong organization. I also think that as far as me and you are concerned, we had to shift how we had to play as well because we handled the ball a lot. In our past situation, you at Ohio State and me at Kentucky. So having to play with a true point guard, that takes adjustments in itself. So I think it was just a culmination of things. I think things ended the way they were supposed to be. And also, you got to remember, Jason Kidd wasn't the Jason Kidd at his second stint of the Mavericks as he was with the first stint of the Mavericks. He couldn't shoot the ball. You know what I mean? So there was but he could pass it very well. I love him as a player, love him as a person. I'm excited for what he's done as a coach, his passion and knowledge of the game. But I just think, we were all looking for different things, but similar things and trying to prove ourselves. And that's why I think we got kind of sidetracked a little bit. And also people don't realize how tough it is to go into a game and you get past the first half in that third quarter, you just don't have enough to close this thing out. And that happened to us quite a bit with the Dallas Mavericks.
Mash, and I'm glad you said that too, the maturity part, because people can tell you how you should react, but until you kind of go through it and you don't have that viable voice in the locker room, and things were upon us really quickly. And I tell you from my perspective, and I tell people this all the time, instability in the franchise was one cause of it too, because, I had 3 different owners, 4 different coaches in 5 years. So you don't, every year something is changing. My injury affected me a lot more than probably I let on to people, because 51 games into that third year, we're rolling, we're on the cusp of maybe making the playoffs. And even when I got out, the team still had a good opportunity near the end of the year to win some games and maybe get that last spot or at least be viable. But going through my injury, it was so much more severe than people think mentally, and I probably let that affect me more than anything, because quite honestly, I didn't feel I had the support once I tried to come back from that injury, because honestly, they tried to rush me back, like to get back into. I remember Donald Carter said, not Donald Carter, but it was Dick Motta. Can you come back at the end of the year, play some games so your scoring would be counted? I said, Coach, I can't even walk. I can't even walk, right? So, and then the following summer, trying to get the rehab to come back to kind of be the player, bro. I was going through where it affected my. And I tell a lot of people that next year, when I struggled at the beginning of the year, right? I couldn't run full speed and go off my left leg without a pain shooting up my leg. So I would slow down on the brake, try to go off 2 feet, and then go up. And a lot of it too, my fault, that we were dealing with that next year. And as I got older, I said, I got to take responsibility. I was trying to get back to who I was, but I wasn't that player because of that injury.
What's interesting about that and that comment that you're making is that's the same thing I dealt with. I was one of the early players to have microfracture surgery.
That next year after I came back in 95, 96, right?
Correct.
And he only played 18 games.
18 games, and I had microfracture surgery. And I tell you what, Jim, I was in the same boat where I kind of went into a shell a little bit. And you know how when you get injured, you know you're not going to be right. The same player that you were. Just something in that chain is off.
Which is hard to accept, too. At being young, that's hard to accept.
And I had to sit in a passive resistant motion machine for 8 hours a day as a part of, I wouldn't even say rehab. And I got a call from the Dallas Mavericks, and I was non-weight bearing, Jim, on crutches for 8 weeks. And then I had to do this passive resistant motion machine throughout a 12-week period. And remember what's the trainer's name? I forget his name.
Was it Don? Don? What was Don's last name? He give it to emu oil. He wanted emu oil for everything.
He sold emus or whatever it was, right? And I'm like, he called me and he was like, "Oh, the 12 weeks are up. You ready to come back and practice?" And I'm like, oh, "Where's the rehab? Where's all these different things that I need? My leg is half the size of what it was before I went into surgery." So that was the time that I knew that I needed a change. And also I had to redefine myself as a player as well, and accept certain things that I couldn't do. And, I went from a guy that could blow by you to a guy that had to get to a mid-range game after my microfracture. I had to adjust.
Man, I feel that, Bash. Man.
And that's hard to do, and especially when you're so young and you're like, man, I'm living my NBA dream and I want to get this second contract, but I'm declining. I'm declining, and I'm so young. So it was really, really tough. And now they call it depression, which I probably was in at that particular time, because I didn't feel like myself, and that took a toll, and I had to redefine it on the fly and become a different player. So that's why I forced a trade out of Dallas to get to the Miami Heat.
Well, I remember we were in the locker room. Now, this is the following year, 96, 97. And now we had another coach in Jim Clemens, who and he wanted to, and that's my Ohio State guy, but he wanted to run semblance of the triangle. We had Samaki Walker. We had a different kind of squad. But I remember you coming into the locker room and was like, "Yo, I just got traded." I was like, "Where?" He said, "To Miami." I said, "Man, you got to be kidding me. You got," because J. Kidd was already gone to Phoenix, and you came, the look on your face when you said, and I'm the first one there, I'm the last one there, and you sitting there telling me that you going to Miami, and I get traded to Jersey. So J. Kidd go to Phoenix, you go to Miami, I go to Jersey.
You know what? And how that happened was, if you remember one of the minority owners, he became a good friend, Frank Zaccanelli.
Oh, yeah, Frank. Remember, he had the ownership with David McDavid in the team at the time. So
Frank Zaccanelli lived in the same neighborhood. I had moved to, I think it was somewhere in Plano, Willow Bend Country.
Yep,
over there in
Country
Plano.
Club.
Yeah, and we started to build a relationship, and I was just honest with him one day, and I said, "Hey, Frank, man, I think it's time for me to move on." He was like, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, I want a different situation." And he was like, "Okay." I said, "I think you guys are going in a completely different direction, and I just need a fresh start to go somewhere." And he said, "What are the clubs you want to go to?" And I said, Indiana Pacers and the Miami Heat. And he said, "Why do you want those two organizations?" I said, "Well, I haven't been a part of an organization that reminded me of my University of Kentucky days when it was all about winning and when he had stability and different things like that and had one voice." Larry Brown was at the Indiana Pacers, and then also, obviously Pat Riley at the Miami Heat. And then a couple of days later, he said, "Man, we got a deal for you to go to the Miami Heat." So to this day, I thank Frank Zaccanelli for listening to me and understanding, what I wanted and really being accommodating, because they didn't have to trade me to Miami.
Check out new episodes of The Jim Jackson Show every Thursday. Watch on the Rich Eisen Show YouTube page. Follow the show on Instagram at Jim Jackson Show, or listen wherever you get your podcasts.